Greetings and welcome, everyone. My name is Judd Hendricks, and I'm the Executive Director of Interfaith Paths to Peace. And I want to welcome you to our monthly program called One River, Many Wells. We explore different religious communities and traditions that are being practiced here in Louisville. One of the amazing things that I'm sure you know is that Louisville is a seedbed of religious and spiritual communities. And I think that's one of the things that makes Louisville one of the most compassionate places in the world. And we are surrounded by just really beautiful, deep, practicing communities that really shape the culture and the ethics and the morality and the engagement of our city. I'm really excited today that we're going to be talking about Hinduism. This is one of my favorite. I study and teach world religions and Hinduism. When I took a test, they have these tests, the beliefnet.org, I think, where you can take a test that asks you different questions about what you believe and how you see the world. And then they tell you what religion you ought to practice based upon that. And when I take that test, it comes up I'm a Hindu or a liberal Quaker. So anyway, we get to explore one of the traditions that apparently I'm the most connected with, at least the way I see the world, and I can share some about my love for the Hindu tradition. So much about what's meaningful to me and the way I see the world is very similar and comes out of the tradition of Hinduism. So I'm really excited. And more excited, we don't just look at it intellectually or study it. We get to hear the experiences of people who practice it here in Louisville. And so I'm so grateful to be surrounded and have on the panel today those from the Hindu Temple of Kentucky. And they have actually put together all the slides, and they're going to be teaching us about their tradition. I'm also thankful Jeremiah Cunningham, who teaches religion at JCTC in the humanities department, is also a conversation partner with us in this series. And so he'll be asking some good questions and also helping us put Hinduism in perspective of other world religions and traditions. So I want to welcome you. We have an amazing panel of teachers and folks from the Hindu Temple of Kentucky that are going to be with us. If you're joining us on Facebook, I want to welcome you and also invite you to put in comments on the Facebook page or questions, and we will bring those into our conversation. So you'll be able to participate in that way. For those of you that are joining us on Zoom, thank you for joining us. And also, you will have a chance to actually unmute yourself and join in the conversation. And I hope you will do that in the second part of our time together. So I want to introduce, we have Johnny, Chandrika, and Jahorti, I believe. I'm maybe missaying your name, apologize. With us from the Hindu Temple of Kentucky. And so I want to invite them. I actually will start with Jeremiah. I want them to introduce themselves to our group today briefly. And I've asked those from the Hindu Temple to share a little bit about themselves and also what's really meaningful to them about Hinduism, about their practice. I want to thank Johnny, who's also on the board at IPP and also on the board for the Center for Interfaith Relations. Johnny teaches across the river and is just a dear member of our board, and he has helped put together this program today. So Johnny, a deep bow to you. And so Jeremiah, would you unmute yourself and introduce yourself a little bit to our community?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Jeremiah Cunningham. I've been involved teaching religion, I guess, for several semesters now at Jefferson Community Technical College. I teach comparative religions, or intro to comparative religions, and introduction to religious studies. I got my master's and everything at the University of Louisville, and happy to be here on this panel. Really looking forward to the opportunity to discuss one of the oldest organized religions, if not the oldest, and which one that I've always been fascinated with. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Great. Thanks, Jeremiah. Johnny, unmute yourself. And Johnny, big thanks to you for pulling all this together.
Greetings to everyone and on the panel, as well as those who are watching either via Zoom or via Facebook. Thank you for your time. And I'm Johnny Alce, and I'm on the, as Judd has already mentioned, I serve on the IPP board, and this is a great opportunity. I'm a layperson, and a good thing to hear from Judd, this is not going to be intellectual, because I'm not one of those intellectual category. I don't belong there. I'm more of a practitioner, and even that, not a dedicated one at it. I try. So what's the background? I've been associate at Temple since I moved to Louisville in 1992, and seen the phenomenal multiple stage growth of the Temple, along with the creation of the Hindu school for the children, which started in the year 2000. And here I have the two esteemed members that are still teaching, who started teaching, who are instrumental in starting the school and continue to do, and they'll explain it a bit more. But I've been associated and seen the progress and operate at different levels. Currently, I'm serving as a puja committee chair, which is responsible for all the religious schedules of the temple. And I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Johnny. Thanks for pulling this together. Chandrika, would you mind introducing yourself? And thanks again for putting all of this together for us.
Namaste, everybody. Thank you, Judd, for the opportunity and Interfaith groups. My name is Chandrika Srinivasan. I am a citizen of this Commonwealth, moved to Louisville and remained in Louisville, grew up and have planted our roots here with family and friends. We're very happy to be here today to share with you what little we know about Hinduism. As far as Johnny mentioned, if Johnny is not an intellectual, I don't even make a mark on the map.
Right,
so
exactly.
that kind of gives you some kind of impression on how things are here. I too, like Johnny, have been involved with the Hindu Temple of Kentucky since we moved in about 20 plus years ago. And I am the current chairperson of the temple. I'm also one of the teachers at the Hindu School of Kentucky, which was, as Johnny mentioned, originated 22, 23 years ago, and been blessed to be part of that journey with fellow teacher Jyoti and several others who are an integral part of what we do for the children of our community and for the community at large. Thank you very much for having me here today.
Thank you. And Jyoti, thank you also for being on. Would you introduce yourself a little?
Great. Hey, hello, everyone. This is Jyoti. And just like Johnny and Chandrika introduced themselves, I am probably the most layperson in this group, and want to give just my perspectives of our religion to the broader community. So very happy to have this opportunity to be part of this conversation, to further our knowledge across communities of different religions that we practice here in the vibrant, Louisville area. Again, just like Chandrika and Johnny talked about, we've been in this community for over 25 years, been associated with the temple. I'm currently also on the board of the Hindu Temple of Kentucky, and along with Chandrika and a very strong group of volunteer teachers, lead the Hindu School of Kentucky, which is this year's our 20th year to be at the temple, and we've expanded our temple community to be able to offer, actual classrooms to meet the need of our community. And we have a very vibrant student population of over 100 students, ages 3 to 15 or 16, that attend the school every Sunday. And very excited to be starting the new school year virtually this year, unfortunately, due to COVID. Just you asked about one thing that's meaningful about your practice. I would say that you're probably going to hear this theme in all of our presentations today, and I feel that's something that's very important to me, is about just the tolerance and the flexibility that this religion offers for each seeker to seek the spirituality and seek God in their own way. That is very important to me in how we define Hinduism as an individualistic practice of each person seeking God in their own way.
Beautiful. Thank you all. And again, thanks for sharing who you are and the practices you teach. Interfaith Paths to Peace is dedicated to building bridges of understanding, and through understanding the ways in which people see the world, the way they practice, we're able to practice greater compassion and empathy. And ultimately, I think we find in the midst of all the beautiful diversity, some really key principles that I think a lot of us just as humans hold to. And so these are not only one way of, we talk about one river, many wells, that there's kind of one force or one, whatever we may call that, that is at the source of all of us. And yet that one river gets expressed by many wells. And so today we're fortunate to explore the Hindu well, and it does go deep into that one river. So thank you all for joining us. We do have some slides to share. And again, they have, the Hindu Temple of Kentucky has put together these wonderful slides for us. And so I'm going to share those, and then I'm going to turn that over to Johnny to kick us off. So Johnny, let me pull up the slides and hold on 1 second. I'm not finding them. Give me 1 second here. I seem to have closed down the slideshow, so I'm going to open that back up. Johnny, can you jump in and start, and I'll pull up the slides as we begin? Sure. Yeah, if you want to do some introductory comments.
Hinduism is one of the ancient religions. It's mother of several religions that have emerged from it, and I will show it to you and talk about it when you show the slide. It was originally called as Sanatana Dharma, which means eternal religion. And hence, the idea behind that is there is no beginning, nor there is going to be an end. Now, why do you say that? The reason for that is the people who articulated the supersensual truths, they said that what the truth they were seeking was always there. And they became an instrument through revelation to find out what those truths are, which they passed it on in the scriptures. And therefore, they did not attribute or give a name to saying that I am the founder, because they claimed it, they were not the creators, they were receivers. And in receiving the message, they communicated it to the larger community of what that message, what the embedded truth was, which they believed was universal in nature. So therefore, it has no founder per se. Now, it's one of the oldest religions, as we already talked about. And the so-called supersensual truths were discovered by pure mind that was dedicated, mind that is purified, mind that contemplated, mind that asked the basic questions of supersensuous truths. Where did the universe come from? Is there a creator? If so, what is he like? What is the relationship between the created and the created? What happens to us when we die? Do we exist after death? Did we exist before birth? So those are the type of question that these rishis, the purified mind contemplators, were seeking, and they went into meditation and deep introspection to discover the truths. And that's why it is called as Sanatana Dharma, and they did not give a name to say, I found it. It was like Newton finding gravity. Gravity existed before Newton, but because he was one who tested and verified and then gave a reason for it, he attributed, or people attributed subsequently to the discoverer, which was always there. And he is now dead and gone, but still the gravity works on us. Similarly, Sanatana Dharma was there before and will continue to be there after we are dead and gone. So Hinduism is broadly divided into these four main components, but even though there's a lot more diversity, it's an umbrella religion which covers different ideas, different facets that Jyoti was alluding to earlier. The democratic way of each one seeking their own pathway to know or realize the truth. So therefore, Shaivism is one of them, where the idea is Lord Shiva, the destroyer, being the center of worship and center of honor. Shaktism is the divine mother, the power of the universe, expressed in feminine form of Hindu faith tradition. Vaishnavism is the Lord who sustains, Lord Vishnu, and those devotees who follow him as the God, as the ultimate Brahman, as the source, and as well as purpose of life is Vaishnavism. Smartism is people who follow more than one of the above that was listed. In other words, in this case, people worship more than one God. To be precise, in this case, Smartas worship about 5 main Hindu gods: Vishnu, Shiva, Ganesha, Surya, and Shakti. Let's go to the next slide. Now, prehistoric data. It's ancient, meaning 1500 to 3200 years before Christ. This was a religion that was practiced, and the ancient people who followed it, they were not called Hindus. They were the Aryans. They were also called as Indo-Aryans from English counterpart. Primarily, these are nomads who had pretty much cattle and herding them all over the place where they could get grass. And therefore, they were settled down. They never were in any one particular place. And they practiced what is called as Arya Dharma, or the religion of areas, which is nothing but duties of an Aryan. The word Hinduism was completely unknown to them. It was only found after the Persians, who had a proximate Hindu land adjoining to them, separated by the river, Sindhu or Indus. Since they didn't have the vocabulary to pronounce Sindhu, they called it Hindu. And the people who were living on the other side of the Indus River were called as Hindus, and the religion they practiced was called as Hinduism. And it was during the settlement period, agrarian society, where all the scriptures were written, where now people had time to contemplate, sit down, not moving around, and therefore they were able to reflect on life, the meaning, purpose, and deeper, mystical sense of who we are and what the purpose of life on earth is. So having said that, let me go back to the slide a little bit and then quickly progress there. Here are some of the highlights that I wanted to showcase in terms of evolution of the subject matter itself. Hinduism has seen several religions emerge from it. And those were reasons because of some of the founders or some of the followers certain aspects of it did not appeal to them, or they discovered certain truths that they wanted to highlight. Mahavir, who was not a founder, but he was more of a reformer, created Jainism, and Buddha created Buddhism. And each of them gave certain tenets. For example, Jainism, Mahavir gave the concept of ahimsa, which now is enfolded and it is integrated part of Hinduism. Similarly, Buddha asked the question of why people suffer. And he came up with 8-fold pathway of saying, this is the reason for suffering. And therefore he said, law of karma, in order to break the cycle, we need to follow the 8-fold, right conduct, right behavior, right truth, right, everything has to be right consciousness and so on. So which then you kind of allow you to overcome the sorrow. Now, Chandragupta Maurya was a big Buddha follower, and he kind of spread the Buddhism around the world during his tenure, and that's how it started. And when Hinduism was in decline, there emerged acharyas. These are the noble souls, saintly souls, who reformed the religion, which was almost on the decadent stage. Adi Shankara created his Advaita philosophy, where everything is nothing but Brahman. Brahman is the ultimate reality, which means each and everything that we see is embodiment of Brahman. Only if we recognize that Brahman alone exists in all of that. But if you superficially see and distinct from it, then it is an illusion that separates Brahman from what you see. Ramanuja was the creator of Vishis Advaita, which he created a situation of saying it's called as non-qualified, a qualified non-dualism, which means the ultimate reality, Brahman, and the human soul, Jivatma, are two separate, but yet they have potential to merge and become identical. And then Madhvacharya created what is called Dvaitism, which means the both two are separate, and the soul, the human soul, the Jivatma, constantly has to be at the mercy and grace of the Brahman. He called it Vishnu. So therefore, the Jivatma, us, are dependent eternally on the Paramatma. And then finally, we have Vallabhacharya. He called it pure monism, where in same idea of Advaita philosophy, but in this case, he attributed it to Vishnu. Brahman is nothing but Vishnu. If you fall at his feet, we get grace and we attain moksha. All right, move on to the next one, and I'll quickly. Here are some of the things that I wanted to highlight. I'm not going to go deeper into it because we'll be spending all time on this. However, I also wanted to showcase Guru Nanak was a creator of Sikhism, which is a religion that emerged out of Hinduism. And Guru Nanak, he called, there are 4 stages to life: Dharma, Gyan, Sharam, Karam, and then Sach. And he said those stages, gradually person evolves, become purer and knows divine. Mirabai and Sakubai put them as women saints. Predominantly it is dominated by male saints and acharyas and then rishis. But also there is a deep bhakti movement created by all these unconditionally dedicated lovers of divine, Mirabai, and their songs and the soulful renderings are heart-wrenching and deeply touching if anybody reads them. And then the last 4 I listed because these are the people who came to West and therefore made aware of Hinduism to the rest of the world. Swami Vivekananda came and he was a representative of Hindu faith tradition in 1893 Parliament of World Religions. And as a result of his presence here, he established Vedanta Society. And Swami Prabhupada was a major devotee of Lord Vishnu, Krishna. And he created what is called as International Society of Krishna Consciousness, and which has presence world over. Paramahansa Yogananda, everyone would know about him if you see this book, Autobiography of a Yogi. That's a book that made popular of Hindu religion, and he established the so-called Self-Realization Fellowship, which still exists in the US and continues to spread the message of Hindu faith tradition. And then, of course, Mahesh Yogi, Maharishi, Transcendental Meditation, and he was the one who created the Institute of International Learning in Colorado. So these are the people who came to the West and as a result enlightened the masses of the Hindu faith tradition. Next, please. And here is some, I think we skipped something here in terms of core beliefs. No.
There.
Okay. The core beliefs. Hindu belief is in one God. Yes, we do practice polytheism. We do practice tantra. We worship goddess. We do worship God, and we do worship God so many forms. But the ultimate reality rests in the Advaita philosophy of saying all this a different manifestation of the same creator. So it is similar to how one sees different ornaments made of gold, and they give different name to the ornaments. But yet, when you melt all of them, and when you get rid of the name and form, they all go to the same base metal of gold. That's the same idea here. God is one. He pervades in so many different forms, and it is ultimately the worshipper's recognition, connection, and his visualization is what translates it as if it's different. Hindus believe in that if you're a Hindu, you have to believe in 4 Vedas. We don't have one scripture, we have 4. And then that's one of the most sacred and also most venerated. And that's the highest truth in Hinduism. All else come under the Vedas. If Vedas say no, which means that's the ultimate authority. And rest is nothing but revelations as well as commentaries as well as explanation of Vedas in form of Upanishads and others. Hindus believe the universe undergoes a cycle of creation, preservation, dissolution. And that's why we are given an independent God to be responsible for each of them. Even though God is one, we say there's a creative power in Brahman. There is preservative power in Lord Vishnu. And there is a dissolutory power in Lord Shiva. In order to recognize all this creative evolutionary aspect is nothing but the ultimate energy coming from the same source. Hindus believe in law of karma, which is you reap what you sow. In other words, every action has its own consequent reaction. Good or bad, you kind of carry that and you're ultimately responsible. If you engage in good acts, it kind of creates merits. If you engage in non-authorized and non-virtuous activities, then it might come back to haunt you. So therefore, the idea is one to become superior, purer through practice, and thereby create good karma in order to evolve, in order to, so the idea is human beings in totality has the ability of becoming God. The divinity is there, but it doesn't manifest in the same way for each people, depending on the purity of the mind and purity of the action, purity of the thought. Therefore, in order to see the divinity unfold and also to be recognized, then actions and then your thoughts and as well as your attributes are going to be the one that is going to reveal that. Therefore, karma tells you to work out all those bad actions in order to make your mind purer, to see the subtle nature of divinity that is self-evident within you. It is like you're a diamond, but you're not knowing it. Why? The dross of the dust and everything is covering up. And then remove all of that, then you will shine like the diamond. So the law of karma is just that. It is the work that you perform in order to remove all the impurities, in order to reveal the true identity of who you are. Hindus believe in soul reincarnates. That's a law of karma's action. In other words, the body is temporary, transient. It's here today and gone tomorrow. Whereas the resident Atman, the so-called the global consciousness, the Paramatman or the God of Brahman is always there. He is neither born nor dies. It is infinite, ever present. Therefore, body can, like a garment, be thrown away. It takes a new form, but the soul within is eternal. So that's a belief of Hindus. Therefore, they believe in life after death. Okay, next one, please. So Hindus believe, yeah. Again,
which one?
Next one.
This one? Yeah.
There we go. So Hindus believe there are gods present everywhere, seen and unseen. And therefore, all our sacraments, ritual worship in temple, and all of that is to appease and also to connect and to be in communion with the divine. And that you will see that practice prevalent in the Native American tradition as well. So Hindus believe that enlightened master is required. Similar to if you want to become a great physicist, you have to train under someone who has gone there before, who have learned about the area of physics, who can kind of then train you in areas where there is potential for you to explore. Same way, if someone wants to be learned, he or she has to go through the learning process for someone who has gone before them. So they can teach them the ways of learning, the methods of learning, the way, and also the object of learning. Similarly, in the spiritual realm, those who have gone before us and those who dedicate their life to pursuit of divine, those who experienced it, they can show us, they can at least create the taste as well as overcome some of the potential pitfalls that might tend to redirect us away from the path. So that's the reason why you need a master who has known the absolute. Finally, Hindus practice ahimsa, which is borrowed concept from Jainism. Prior to that, there was animal sacrifice in Hinduism, and therefore non-injury was big point of Mahavir, who created Jain tradition. And that was a borrowed concept primarily from Jain tradition. And finally, Hinduism, this is the beauty of what Jyoti was talking about earlier, is as a religion, it says ours is not the only way to salvation. Above all of this, all genuine paths and efforts of people seeing the light is deserving of tolerance, understanding, and also integrating in your own life if it is going to lead you to there. So it's a question of individual effort, ultimately. And the next slide primarily tells you where Hindus are located, not this prior one. Here is primarily from India, 870 million people. And then Nepal is a Hindu country, whereas India, even though predominantly Hindu, about 82 or 83%, 84%, there's also a substantial 12% Muslim population. And that's because of, over time, the invaders from every part of the Middle East, as well as from Europe, have invaded India and tried to convince or change the minds of Indians in terms of religious faith was not worthy of following, but they failed. But still, it's a land which is dominated by Hindus. And then you see, wherever Indian so-called diaspora has gone, there have been sizable and significant number of Hindu practitioners. Malaysia is one, Myanmar, Burma is one. These happened during the course of time where people are seeking, as a result of wanting to do business or seeking opportunities or traversing other places to get goods and services to be sold in India. And then they settle in some of these countries, similar to how we have settled in the United States. The US has 2.29 million people. We all came here to improve a lot in the pursuit of education, unleashing our gift that we have, and also to contribute to society. But now we call it a home. So we have created a diaspora in US with 2.29 million. And in Louisville, we created a temple. For Hindus, without temple, there's no life. For Hindus, it's a way of life. Hinduism is a way of life. Every day, every act, everything we do, there is a connection to religion. Therefore, it is called as a way of life. Thank you very much. And I'll leave it to Chandrika to follow me.
Hello, everyone. First off, I must make a honest disclosure that with the turn of availability of information on the internet and Google and etc., the job of us putting together a presentation is, especially with pictures and such, is extremely easy. So I owe all the collection of information over here with respect to the photographs and some of the quotes to many, many authors and contributors on the internet. Having said that, I've just had an opportunity to take a very small portion of it and share it here. And I seek everybody's forgiveness in the event that I do make any mistakes. I look upon the others to share and share alike. We will now talk about the images of the divine in the next few slides. And one of the questions that comes up a lot amongst people when we run into conversations about this particular religion is, you all have so many gods and goddesses, how do you keep track of it? And one of the things that you would have grasped by this time is when Johnny said, Hinduism is a way of life. So it is extremely personable. It is extremely personal. And even though it is ritualistic, yet it is liberalistic. It allows you the flexibility despite the different processes that are put into place in order to practice it. And therein lies the beauty. So we will start with the images of divine, and I've tried to break it down into 3 different components: the significance of color, the significance of form, and the significance of attributes. As you go through this, you will see how each of these come into play. And like anything else, the more variety you have, the more combinations you can have. But then there is a common thread that runs through the presentation of these different divine forms. Next slide, please. We'll start with significance of color. Something that attracts and is a hallmark of Indians as such, as well as Hinduism, is the vibrancy that goes with everything that we celebrate. And each of the colors carries some significance in terms of what does it mean, what does it stand for. And I've just listed for you here the different colors that are commonly seen, and they each carry some level of identity, if you will. And so, for example, blue usually represents the vastness or a depth or infinity. That's kind of the concept. That's what comes to mind when you see blue with respect to Hinduism. You look at red, people think of sensuality or power, purity, because you will see as we appreciate the culture behind it. Religion mirrors and follows culture very closely in Hinduism. And any ceremonies that are being conducted are based on the colors that are being used, will kind of signal to you what kind of event we are celebrating. Saffron represents knowledge, fire. Green, life, happiness. Earth, yellow, knowledge, learning. So when somebody asks you, why are some gods depicted in blue toned skin, therein lies your answer. The creation of nature, if you think about the sky, the oceans, they're all blue. They depict vastness, infinity, immeasurable magnitude. And so those are all the expressions of why these gods are sometimes depicted in blue toned skin. That's just one example. Let's go to the next slide. Here is a wallpaper, if you will, of all the different significant forms of the divine. And one might ask, what is the significance of, if you're not used to this type of polytheistic practice of religion, oftentimes the questions asked will include, why do your gods have forms of animals associated with them? Why do your gods have multiple arms? Why do your gods have different colors? Why do one of your gods has a third eye? Why is that? So these kinds of questions get asked very often, and we can try to explain that in this way. So let's start with, for example, the form. Mark Twain said, India has 2 million gods and worships them all in religion. All other countries are paupers. India is the only millionaire. And that is the beauty about the religion itself. You could go to a nook and corner of a village and you will find a god that you have not found anywhere else. There are the Trinity, which everybody knows about, and Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and along with their consorts. But then each one of them has their own incarnations, and each incarnation is depicted depending on the history behind it. The purpose behind that incarnation being taken pretty much determines the attributes that these gods and goddesses will be carrying. The same goddess Lakshmi, who is portrayed as a compassionate mother, is also portrayed as a patient. When we talk about Mother Earth, she is also a form of Mother Earth. Goddess Durga, who is a form of consort Parvati of Lord Shiva, is portrayed as a compassionate mother, yet she could also be the fierce one, very powerful. It all depends on the purpose for which they take a particular incarnation. And I try to challenge myself as well as present this as part of the Sunday school teachings to think of, is there anything that is not represented in the form of a god in Hinduism? And I'm yet to find something that does not fit that bill. And so that is the reason, somehow to have an avenue for the layperson to identify with a god that he or she is comfortable with, he or she can relate to. And that in the big expanse of the religion and the flexibility of the religion allows for such expansion of the various forms that go along with the personifications. So let's go to the next slide. The third aspect of the forms of divine goes along with the significance of attributes. What do I mean by attributes? You take any god or goddess that's depicted in Hinduism, he or she will be equipped with various items. And based on what they're equipped with, you can surmise what their role and purpose is. For example, what are they standing or sitting on? What vehicle, in other words, it's termed vahana, what vehicle are they riding? If they are seated on a lotus, they are in a more sedentary form. If they are riding a vehicle, they are in pursuit of some action or purpose. What kind of clothing are they wearing? What is the color of the clothing? What is the material of the clothing? And sometimes you start kind of challenging yourself. Some aspects of it come from our own internal knowledge, what we believe it is, and the others are, the rest of it is based on what story is this particular god or goddess telling us based on the way they are dressed, and what are they holding in their hands. Next slide, please. So I've taken the example of Lord Ganesha, and to just kind of elaborate on how one can go about understanding the different attributes and the beings, where, you know, what they are signifying. So for example, in this Lord Ganesha's picture, I've kind of circled, think about the large head. It is a signal to the common man to think big. Small eyes, focus, you know, concentrate and focus on the goal. The axe, for example, it is symbolic of removing bondage. Remove bondage, remove attachment, and seek salvation. The size of his trunk, or the form of his trunk, it is flexible, and it shows be efficient, be adaptable. I won't go through and read all of these. You can read as well as I can. One of the other things is one tusk. You know, there is a story behind why Lord Ganesha lost one tusk and has the other, and it is symbolic of retaining good in you and getting rid of bad, or sacrificing yourself for the good of others. One interesting thing is Lord Ganesha is a form of an elephant, but then he's depicted as being able to ride a mouse. So, you know, that kind of, for the logical person, they're thinking, you know, how can a big elephant ride on a mouse? You know, that's a fair question, and it comes about all the time. But if you think about the quality of the mouse, the characteristic of a mouse curries here and there. It's always on the run, always trying to grapple, and then you have this powerful form of Lord Ganesha who rides the mouse, symbolic of being controlling of the mouse. The mouse here is depicted and symbolic of one's desire, to be able to control your desires and be able to drive forward. And that is what that is supposed to be symbolic of. So that's just an example of one god. And you can go on like this and understand and attempt to understand the significance of all these different gods and goddesses, their roles. You will, for example, you could see goddess Parvati in red, and sometimes you would see goddess Parvati in green. What do those mean? Each of those colors carry certain significances, and that's how the Hindus, as a way of life, it's a lifelong journey of learning, and we will all, I can tell you, all three presenters today, we will be students of Hinduism until we pass. And that's how vast and deep the religion is. Next slide, please. So when you are thinking about these questions, you know, why do Indian gods have more than two hands? One can apply even common sense. Number one, they are superhuman. They are beyond us. And so they are a force to be reckoned with. So when you see them, they're not, even though they are created in our form, they are still not our form. They are beyond us. They also, because of the different hands that they have, it's a symbolic of them having so many varied powers, which they can implement all at the same time. Why is Lord Shiva depicted with three eyes? And what is the third eye? The third eye is something that is present in each soul, each being. It is the inward looking. It is a spiritual source of spiritual knowledge and wisdom. It's introspective. It is that which sees beyond the physical. And he, as the master of penance, he is depicted with three eyes to show that therein lies the seat of true knowledge. And then why do Indians bring their hands together and say namaste? You saw Johnny, and you will see a lot of Indians practice that, where they bring both their hands together and in this form called namaste. And that basically means I bow to you. I bow to you as in the soul within me bows to the soul within you. Understanding, as we saw in the different tenets of the religious practice, that all souls are equally valuable. My soul is in that way expressing reverence to the soul that is within you. This paying of respect from the soul in one to the soul in another also creates that sense of value, sense of tolerance, and deep respect for one another, regardless of where you are from and what you do. And there is the concept that the human is created in the reflection of the divine. But then there is also the flip argument, because in my readings, I've seen some authors who then say, well, maybe the divine as you see it, the Lakshmi or the Parvati or the Vishnu or the Shiva, as you see it, is a reflection of you, because that's who you are. You are human, so you have given the divine a human form. Be that as it may, if the ultimate goal is for us to have means to follow good thought, words, and deed, what stops us other than being able to use any such form that is available to us and able to meet that goal that we have set out to practice? Chicken or egg? We know they exist, flourish, and benefit. Does it really matter which came first? Thank you.
Namaste, everyone. Good afternoon. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the practice of worship and prayer in the Hindu religion. And just as Chandrika said before me, it is really, really hard to boil down the entire tenet of this deep religion and all of the practices from thousands of years into a couple of slides. I will attempt to talk a little bit about our religion and the common practices of worship and prayer that even today most Hindus follow across the world. So there are numerous forms of worship among Hindus, of which puja is one of the most popular. Puja is done on various occasions. It is a ritual worship, and the meaning of the word puja is reverence, honor, adoration, or worship. And this honor or adoration is towards usually a particular deity that is invoked for the puja in the form of god or goddess. There's a lot of flexibility as we think about puja. There's individual puja that one does in the home, and there's also pujas that are done in the temple during temple ceremonies or during annual festivals. So it is practiced in the home, it is practiced in the temple, it can be practiced in any location. The first step of the puja usually starts with the lighting of the lamp, and it's a very common practice in Hindu homes on a daily basis for the lady of the house to light the lamp both at dawn and at dusk every day. When we talk about the home puja, most Hindu homes, whether it's in the United States or in India or anywhere in the world, you will find that they have a sanctum or sanctorium in the house, a small room, a small area. Sometimes it's just a cupboard in a kitchen where they keep different idols, and they use that as their prayer rooms. But the common things you will find in those areas are different pictures or deities of different gods and goddesses, and of course the diya or the lamp that is lit every day in honor of those deities and to pray to those deities. So the daily prayers, like I said, is usually done in the home of any Hindu. It starts in the morning where the lady of the house or the man of the house will light a lamp, say a few prayers, and do their namaskara to the deity to start off their day, and usually in dusk, just before dark. Some of the other practices that are mentioned here are part of the puja ceremony. The arti is the ceremony where lamps are lit and there is a circumambulation of the Lord using the different lights. Bhajan or a kirtan is the devotional hymns or chants that that are sung for each of the individual lords. They could be in any language, sometimes Sanskrit, but sometimes any local language that that professes devotion to the particular deity that is part of the puja. Darshan is taking an audience or seeing the Lord or coming in front of the Lord and offering the Lord offering their presence to you in the temple or within your home. Prasad is what is usually offered to the gods, where a devotee may cook a food and offer it to the Lord. And once it's offered to the Lord and blessed by the Lord, the priest will offer it back to the devotee, this is considered sacred food that has been blessed by the deity or by the god that it's being offered to. The other forms of worship and prayer that you will commonly see Indians or Hindus involved in are pravachans, which are talks or lectures on the various scriptures by rishis and gurus that interpret these texts to us in common language, in our common day-to-day life, that we can understand it. As Johnny has mentioned, most of our Indian texts, and we'll get a little bit into it as we get into the presentation, is written in the language of Sanskrit, and most of the Hindus today are not aware, it is not a common language that is spoken today or learned or understood. And so we need our interpreters, who are our gurus, to interpret those scriptures and tell us all the hidden meaning behind the texts and the scriptures of Hinduism. Havan is another form of puja which involves a sacrificial fire. This usually comes into play in some of our ceremonies, such as weddings and other ceremonies that are done in the house, where the fire is considered a symbolic witness to this ceremony that is happening in front of you. Prayer, meditation, and japa are also internal practices of worship that have been talked about in all of our various scriptures. And the last two are pradakshina, where you might go to a temple, or you might see a Hindu doing a circumambulation or going in a clockwise fashion around either the temple premises, or they may do a circumambulation 3 times around in a clockwise fashion in the place that they are. This is considered a respectful a way to show respect for the gods, and we are going around them and providing our respect to the deity or to the temple or to the sacred space. And lastly, we also consider seva, which is active service, as a form of prayer, as a form of worship. So I talked to a lot of terms over here. Again, these are all different practices of worship and prayer that a Hindu will engage in different times in their life. If you go on to the next slide, I do want to talk a little bit about the most widely accepted and followed system of puja, which we call the 16-step puja, or the Shodasha Upachara. This puja is the main purpose of it is twofold. When we think about the 16-step puja, the primary aim of it is to uplift all the 5 senses of the worshipper. So in doing so, we hope that the devotee is elevated to a level of consciousness that will promote good thought and good actions. Secondarily, it really draws upon the Indian tradition of honoring a guest, where we offer the service to the deity who takes that presence in the sculpture during the performance of the puja. We have a saying in our proverb in our Hindu religion, and it goes like this. It's Mata, Pita, Guru, Atiti, Devam. That means father, mother, guru, and Atiti, meaning the guest, is considered God. So in this form of puja, which is the 16-step puja, you will see where we considering the Lord as a guest in this presence, and we offer the rituals and the devotion to the Lord to invite the guests to reside in this image and honor the guest with these different steps in the puja. I'm going to talk a little bit about these different steps, and then we're going to actually be able to see one of these pujas that are conducted in the temple on a regular basis. And if you would like to see more, I would strongly recommend you go to our Facebook site, which is the Hindu Temple Facebook site, and you will see videos of all the different rituals and pujas that are conducted in the temple. So the 16-step puja, again, goes back to the concept of inviting the Lord and accepting him as a guest in our space in the temple, and meditating upon the Lord to first be invoked into the deity that is in front of us. Once the Lord has been invited, just like you would do inviting a guest with honor and reverence to your home, we are offering the guest a seat. We wash the deity's feet with clean water and offer water to cleanse the deities of their travels. The very important step in one of the pujas, in the 16-step puja, is what we call the step 7, which is the snana, or bathing the deity with various auspicious items. So as you will see in the video that's going to follow next, you will see the priest in the puja offering various items that are used to bathe the deity in the temple. This is called abhishekam, or the ritual washing of the deity. It is an age-old practice from the Vedic times, and it's practiced even today, as you will see. It really signifies the affection and the love and the bhakti of the devotee for his or her God. The whole purpose of this type of worship, like I mentioned before, is to withdraw the mind from the day-to-day worldly things and turn us towards God. So to express that in more layman's term, worship is to calm down the ever agitating mind so that one is relieved of stress. And so this form of worship really tries to engage all the 5 senses of the devotees and creates that energy for that spiritual awakening. Some of the items that you will see that the priest offering in the abhishekam are items like milk, buttermilk or yogurt, ghee, honey, as well as sandal paste and other items that are offered during the abhishekam. The intent of this, again, is to create a visual experience as well as connect completely with the God and offer our love and devotion to the Lord. This also is a way to cool down the idol and prevents them in a practical way from any cracks. Following the abhishekam, the steps in the puja includes offering of incense, flowers, again lighting of the lamp, and then offering the Lord food. Once the food is offered to the Lord as naivedya, it is then offered to the devotees as to accept from the Lord as being blessed by the Lord as prasad. The last step of the puja is a devotee doing, again, the circumambulation of the altar, like I'd mentioned before, and bidding the farewell to the deity and doing honoring the deity by doing namaskaram and offering our humble respect to the God. So if we could play the video, we will watch some of these steps that are being offered in our temple today in the Balaji Abhishekam, which is one of the forms of Lord Vishnu that you will see the priest in our temple offering the Balaji Abhishekam ceremony.
मधु आवाहयामि ओम आद्यं समर्पयामि समर्पयामि ओम शर्करा स्नानं समर्पयामि इति पंचामृतेन स्नानं कर्तुं संकल्पनं वार्षिकोत्सव महोत्सवांग पंचामृताभिषेक पूजा राम कल्याण कुशलेव मातरं तस्मात् स्वर्णस्वरः प्रजाभ्य परिपालयन्तां न्यायेन मार्गेण महीं महिषा गोब्राह्मणेभ्यः।
So as you can see, it was that was actually a 2.5 hour puja that was condensed into 2.5 minutes. So again, as you can see, it's a very experiential ritual that is conducted in the temple and very specific to each of the lords or the murtis that is invoked within the temple premises. I'm going to. I know we are right at 4:05, so right. Judd, I wanted to ask, do we continue?
Yeah, no, let's continue on, and then we can, if folks have questions, feel free to put those in the chat box, and we can come to those here in a few minutes, or if you're on Facebook Live, feel free to offer a question in the comment box. But yeah, we can continue.
Okay, so just to reiterate, if you would like to see more of the pujas now that we are virtual, we are actually streaming live our ceremonies on our Facebook page, so you can go and visit our Facebook page to see more of those daily practices and worship of the various temples. I'm handing it off to Johnny.
All right, it's my turn. And this has always been a question that often people raise about Hinduism in terms of saying it's a caste-based system. And this caste-based system comes from the Aryan tradition, where they determined people and allocated them to different areas of functioning based on the characteristics, qualities, and the innate skills that they showcased. As a result, they organized a society in the form of 3 or 4 primary category areas, 4 or 5. In this case, I've listed 4. Brahmin are the people who are supposed to be contemplative in nature, pure in thought, and also one who has intellectual capacity in order to learn the scriptures and then chant.
Let's see, Johnny, I think you just went on to mute there.
Accidentally. So what you heard is a Vedic mantra. It takes time, it takes years in order to learn them, know the meaning, and also chant with the right kind of intonation. So that is primarily a skill that is based on people's ability to concentrate and also reflect on what they've learned. And that's what these Brahmin qualities are. If you had that quality, then you are expected to pursue in that particular area. Today, that's exactly what we do. If somebody has a science bent of mind, we gear them towards engineering and medical field. Somebody has artistic, creative talent, we channel them to areas of artistic theater, music, creative writing, and so on. That's exactly what they did in the Indo-Aryan region. There was absolutely no discrimination. There's no evidence of discrimination during that time period, because it was based on innate qualities and characteristics individuals exhibited who were then classified to play a role. Kshatriyas are the warriors, the kings, the administrators who are responsible for overseeing the functioning, administrative functioning of the government. They cannot be then leaned or pushed into learning about the intellectual requirement of being a Brahmin. So does a Brahmin is not expected to become a king. He or she is then only dedicated in pursuit of knowing Brahman, or upholding the values of scripture, managing the temple, and those type of things. So each one was segmented in that way based on the qualities. Vaishyas are the one who couldn't become kings or administrators and warriors, but yet they were allowed to accumulate wealth via trading. And Shudras are the people who engage in agriculture as well as any type of artisan work, any creative work required for the society. That's what they did. However, there's a fifth class, which is not categorized here. And that is based on people who doesn't fit any of these categories, or who violated the requirements or duties of each of these categories. They were called as outcasts. For example, how would you classify a sannyasin, a monk, a rishi, who doesn't fit any of these categories? So he or she would be called as outcast, but yet they were revered and respected because of who they were. They were independent, they were constantly thinking about divine, they didn't care about any attachment to the worldly affairs, and they were highly revered and respected because they're carriers of wisdom. However, what about somebody, a Brahmin? According to Manu, he talks about a twice born, a Brahmin, who knowingly eats mushrooms, a village pig, garlic, a village cock, onions, or leeks, will become an outcast. So he or she is shunned from the society. So that was the caste that was not captured. However, what happened was over time, what was once based on purely on ability, skill, and then qualities became a hereditary aspect of classifying people on the basis of caste. And part of the reason for that is primarily one, political power and authority, as well as resources that come with it, and status that one achieves in the society. Hence, the caste started classifying themselves as superior and inferior over time. And that also has to do with, over time, the repeated invasions of a variety of different groups, right from Greeks, the Huns, the Arabs, the Turks, the Afghans, the Persians, the Mongols, the Portuguese, you name it, which has also utilized that caste system to divide and conquer. Thereby, they could kind of put their print in managing the affairs of the people in a foreign land. As a result, what has happened was they created this animosity among castes over time. Now, the effects of repeated foreign invasion did involve that impact as well as influence. Some castes benefited. For example, the Brahmin caste, which used to be the upholders of Vedic knowledge, the one who used to practice the Sanskrit language, know about the religion, who were instrumental running all the temples, they were quickly absorbed by the British Empire during their tenure in a variety of positions that required that talent and skill, their knowledge and their ability. So they became really beneficiary of that particular opportunity. And hence, it created a bigger divide within the society because of hatred and jealousy that came with the wealth and acquisition of power and relationship closer to the British Empire. So, has there been steps taken to cure the caste system? Absolutely. After independence, India did just that. Now it is illegal in India after independence to discriminate a person on the basis of caste and their sexual origin or their orientation. And yet, is caste completely eradicated from India? Definitely not. Because similar to how, even though we are kind of think civil rights have overcome the racist system, internally, there are rednecks everywhere. Internally, there are racists everywhere. And there are people who are uneducated, ignorant, and bigoted in order to carry forth that old way of living. Same way, even in India, not in urban centers. If you're educated, you're more likely to even typical to what Judd was earlier talking about. When he took the quiz, he was considered close to Hindu faith tradition follower because of liberal ideas. Most of the Hindus, if they're educated, they're liberal and open-minded. And they wouldn't mind intercaste marriage, which is commonly happening these days. And also on top of that, Indian government has instituted to overcome the disparities that existed through stipends to scholarship, to admission process, to allocating certain percentage of seats, what we call a quota system, in order to bring them to economic and resource power on par with other communities over time. But yet, it still pervades India. I'm saying it's not completely out of the woods. It's still there, but mostly in the rural areas where it is a lot more deeper and dominant. Part of the reason for that is lack of knowledge, lack of universal experience, lack of being exposed to bigger ideas about nobility of religion, of divinity being present in everyone, where you treat everyone on par on the basis of recognizing the divinity. So what we have in India as a caste system is equivalent to a class system in Europe, or it's equivalent to what we have in the US, civil rights, which is based on race. That's the kind of system we have. It is prevalent everywhere, so is India. But hopefully with education and cultural upbringing, as well as economic attainment and overcoming poverty, that would enable people to be at least reduce the practice of the age-old caste system. Having said that, let me move on to the next one, which is talking about the different roles individual goes through life. And it's a typical evolution of an individual, stages of life in terms of birth to learning, where he learns under a guru, a teacher. And the teacher is, as Jyoti earlier mentioned, Mata, Pita, Guru, and also we talk about relatives or friends coming over. They're also God. So those are the first teachers. But yet, when you say Mata Pita is a first teacher, then you have a guru. The guru is a superior teacher in the sense he doesn't have any emotional tie to the individual, which could either control a parent's ability to discipline a child or not, because emotion sometimes overcomes recognizing what is right and what is wrong. How should you penalize a kid when he or she is not doing their supposed to be expected duties? So whereas a teacher can be unconditional in that way. His job is to teach. His job is to identify the weakness of a child and correct them in order to bring the best of the student, as well as recognize the ultimate potential of a child. And that's the stage. The first stage is brahmacharyam, is a stage where they learn. They learn every aspect of life, including spiritual. Spiritual is emphasized. And the reason for that is even after having all the secular knowledge, if your mind is impure, your mind is polluted, your mind is digressed, a mind can constantly monkey around, then the focus and the ability to recognize and realize full potential is not there. And therefore, the brahmacharyam is combination of secular / spiritual knowledge in order to bring all the good virtues in an individual of a noble character. Grihasthasrama, which is the second stage, which is nothing but a householder stage. In this stage, with the permission of Guru, you go back home and then you tie the knot. And even after tying the knot, there comes a duty of progeny and providing for the family and raising good kids. And in doing all of that, you cannot shirk from your ultimate responsibility, which is constantly reading our scriptures, constantly practicing the pujas that Jyoti just alluded to earlier. Those are the disciplinary facets that the teacher taught that is supposed to continue until your end of life. So it's a concept of starting young, training the mind when it is unpolluted, and then providing them all the basic tools needed in terms of continuing the discipline, which then becomes a second nature. You don't even think about it, you do it. So that's what it is. During Grihasthasrama, you're supposed to do that. So here there is role for kama, which means sensual pleasures. So Hinduism is never about shirking away from any of the material comforts. All it says is enjoy the comforts, but don't get attached to it. You have to have control over it. You have to be, contented with what you have. The more the desires you have, the more digression away from the knowing of true nature, who you are, and your connectivity to divine. So therefore, Grihasthasrama is an experience where you, along with your spouse, with the power of two, you can get closer to divine, where each one brings out the best of other in order to elevate the mind, and together working in unison. And that's why she is called as Ardangini, which means the other half of you. And therefore, together you do it. And together you conquer. It is a combined effort, each one putting in their best foot forward and bringing the best in each other. The third one is a preparatory stage for the final one, which is sannyasam. I can't even get it. Let others do it. So in this stage, what you're doing is mentally you're getting ready for the eventual monastic life. So therefore, in this stage, you are constantly thinking about and developing practice of detachment. So hence, in this stage, the law of Manugiver says, see his skin wrinkled and his hair white. That is time to say goodbye to your householder duties, which means the life is going to taken out of you sooner or later. It's a matter of time. Don't waste getting sucked into the material comforts of the world, forgetting your true purpose in life, which is to attain your union with divine. So therefore, this is a time for you to go to the forest and then be in solitude. Think about your own ultimate goal of wanting to be one with divine. Prepare for it. Stay alone. You go about with the food of what is available to you that Mother Nature gives. It has to be simple. It cannot be, it could be cooked or uncooked. That is, if it's cooked, it's a luxury. If it's uncooked, that's a nature. So live with it. Do not complain. Then you don't take care of your beard. You don't shave. You don't clip your nails. None of that. Great simplicity and religious austerity. It's one of introspection, contemplation, and then mental detachment away from material comforts, as well as associations and relationships that you have with the rest of the family. In other words, getting the mind ready for the final stage, which is sannyasam. Sannyasa means your complete detachment with each and every aspect of what you're connected with life. Mentally, it may not be physical. It's more of a mental gamemanship. In this case, you're going to give up your family. You're going to retake a new name, which means it's a new identity. You're a new person where it's no more about you. It's all about knowing divine everywhere and his presence being experienced at all times. So that's what it is. In this case, a monk typically doesn't care. He shaves his head, but he doesn't care. He doesn't care about his body. He begs for his food, and he is limited to a maximum of 7 homes. From 7 homes, if he's lucky to get his morsel of food, that's a food for the day. He sleeps under a tree or a place of a temple, or it's an abandoned home. It could be a street as well. It could be anywhere. All he carries with him is a staff and a pot with water and just his loincloth, a loincloth. And other than that, his cloth on his body. That's all he has in terms of material possessions of life. And then none of the obligatory duties and rituals is expected of him. He is in constant communion with divine at that time. And he doesn't stay at any one place for too long, not more than 2 days, because his goal is to be non-attached. The world is his home. No place is his, no relationship is permanent. Everything is transient. Lord alone is the ultimate, and that's a path of a monk. And that's what a monk is supposed to be. He is the wisdom keeper. He is one who cares about the whole world. Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is his. And that's the role of a monk. Now, do Hindus practice in reality? Not really. Not many of them would do it. But it's a tough ask. It's a real tough ask. There are people who do it. And those are people who have been trained early on and had the urge to achieve the real purpose of life. But otherwise, most of the people in general is typical common man like everywhere else you will see in the world. They're spiritual, they're religious, but not to the stage as expected or dictated by your scripture's view of human requirement, human mind condition. That's something people do not practice in a large number. But if you go to India, there are people who will not even have a piece of cloth on them. These are people who say, I am free. You talk about complete freedom. I came with nothing. I leave with nothing. The only thing that gave me life is the only thing I'm going to connect to. That's divine. I'm at the mercy of the divine. With that, the stage is complete.
Do we have any questions that we want to go through, Judd, now, or do we want to?
No, you can, I don't know. Let's see if anybody on Facebook or anybody on Zoom.
Jeremiah can have a question as well, please.
Yeah, Jeremiah, thought,
otherwise
question,
we'll consume
reflection.
all time.
Let's jump in. Yeah. Or anybody else on Zoom can feel free to unmute themselves and reflect. We've got about, 10 more minutes. So,
Okay.
yeah, let's have some conversation. What's showing up for people?
Let's just, if I could just make a brief observation. I myself am a practitioner of the Lakota traditions, which is a Native American tradition here from the United States. It's also very ancient, but sans doctrine. I see so many similarities between Hinduism and some of the Native American symbolism and things of that nature. I mean, from the circumambulation to the 4 stages of life, which would definitely be similar to the medicine wheel, these particular ritual practices, to the multiple diverse ways in which devotional practices can happen, to this overall blanket sacred divine being, but all of these different means and accesses to them. One thing that I find like just remarkable and something that really kind of, I guess something that I find so appealing and similar is that aspect that there are multiple means in which to get to the same ends. And that diverse practice that seems like over time has been, even more diversified, is really just something that is quite phenomenal to me. Thank you very much for at least, or for definitely talking about some of these things from your own perspective, because it's all too often that, especially me being a teacher or a professor of religious studies, we get someone else's perspective from the outside, and that's what we end up teaching. And so that's a very hard, I don't know if we necessarily as teachers always give things a fair shake from the interior. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I really do appreciate greatly. And as every time I stand on the stage with you, Johnny, I'm just like, man, we should have coffee and just spend about 3 days together.
Let COVID be over. We'll do it.
Okay, sounds like a plan.
It's on me.
All right. Yeah. Well, and I really just want to say thank you for the opportunity for all of you to explain some of these things that I can better explain to my students. And yeah, I mean, like, I think that, part of what when I present my Hinduism as a religion to my students, the first thing I tell them is like, well, I'm describing a religion and a philosophy to you that's really more than just this. And I've kind of, and I know that's ambiguous, but it is so much more than what I'm trying to explain, because there are so many other outlets to, and so many other philosophies that are just kind of under this one moniker that isn't necessarily even, I guess, traditional to that particular region. So I'm just like, well, I'm describing something to you that may or may not even be appropriate. So I think what I'm saying is, with the means of diversity and the inclusiveness of Hinduism as a whole, I just really appreciate the opportunity to listen to, so many of the activities and rituals and understandings that you all have presented today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I'd have a question for you all. What, out of all of these just beautiful practices, is there a god or goddess that's especially powerful for you all to evoke your sense of oneness, or a practice that's really meaningful to you? I would love to hear you all talk about that in your own personal journey.
I'll leave the ladies to go first. since you say goddess.
Yeah.
He said God before goddess. You didn't hear it.
I'm more interested in the goddess. I'm more interested in the goddess. So.
The goddess aspect of it.
Yeah.
Chandrika, you go.
All right.
See how quick my friends are to throw me in the ring? So ask your question again, Judd.
Yeah, is there a specific goddess or god or practice that you find to be especially powerful for you in connecting you to the Brahman, Atman, or ultimate reality?
You know, I am, if there is a commitment to be made, I am by practice, by faith, and by birth, supposed to be a Vaishnavite. I have grown in a household which also revered and prayed to the Shaivite gods. So in some ways, I'm probably one of the few that will, or one of the many that would have a polytheistic attitude towards my faith practice. However, as I've grown into the religion, as I have learned more about the religion, I am tending to more towards the pathway of salvation. What is it that allows this soul to, or give it a chance? I can't say I have any chance at this point, but I still have hope. You know, my goal and the goal of every human being is, or every being, is to take that soul to the next goal, you know, in a baton relay, if you will. And in that journey, I find myself more geared towards the Vaishnavite traditions. And that is not to say that I've kind of, you know, renounced myself from the other traditions, because that is something that is very dear to me and has a lot of faith-based practices that I've been engaged in through my, you know, youth and my formative years. However, the salvation that I am most attracted to is that of the ultimate salvation in the form of surrendering, total surrender to Lord Vishnu. And so, you know, hopefully, and the beautiful thing about the religion, though, is there's a lot of, you know, when Johnny or somebody talked about the Trinity and the roles of the different gods, the beautiful thing about the religion itself is, number one, there's division of labor. Each one takes on its particular responsibility. But then ultimately, if you look at, there are a lot of scriptural readings as well as stories that come, that stand for the proposition of collaboration amongst the gods and goddesses to achieve one common goal. And so even though we talk about certain paths, they all lead to the same salvation, but how do you get to that? You know, what path do you choose? And some of them will lay claim to fame that, you know, hey, you know, this is the only way to do it. And be that as it may, I am focused on the total surrender path, which, you know, if we had had time, I would have talked a little bit about it, but for another day.
Beautiful.
Judd,
Thank you.
if
Yes.
I may join, then Jyoti can have the last word. If I may join, similar to what Chandrika was talking about, I was raised in a Shaivite tradition where Lord Shiva is the ultimate worshiper. As a family, ultimately we worship him. However, when I was growing up, when I was young, I was influenced by Ramakrishna Paramahansa. Okay, he's a mystic saint, and his student is the one I referred to earlier, Swami Vivekananda, who came to Chicago in 1893 to address the Parliament of Religions. Now, Ramakrishna was an ardent devotee of Divine Mother, Durga in Bengal. So it's a manifestation of goddess in so many different forms. We celebrate a program called as Navaratri, 9 nights of honoring Divine Mother with various attributes. Now, let me give some reading here from these two people in terms of how powerful the message was in a tender mind when I was young, exploring different religions on my own. First, we talked about your concept of one river, many wells. This is what his address, address of Swami Vivekananda was in 1893. This is what he said. I quote to you, brethren, a few lines from the hymn, which I remember to have repeated from my earliest childhood, which is every day repeated by millions of human beings. as the different streams having the sources and different paths, which men take through different tendencies, various though they may appear, crooked or straight, all lead to thee. So in other words, the idea of just what Chandrika was just mentioning, the paths could be many, or Jeremiah earlier mentioned, the practices could be so many different varied forms, depending on the region, the environment, where you came from, what religion you practice, and so on. But the ultimate goal, end goal, is the same. So here is his master's ideas. This is what he talks about in terms of Divine Mother. God himself has provided different forms of worship. He, who is the Lord of the universe, has arranged all these forms to suit different men in different stages of knowledge. The mother cooks different dishes to suit the stomachs of her children. Suppose she has 5 children. If there's a fish to cook, she prepares various dishes from it: pilaf, pickled fish, kebab, fried fish, and so on, to suit the different tastes and powers of digestion of the children. So similarly, the religious forms that we talk about are nothing but varied, and it suits different temperaments and different ways and walks of life. And the final one, I'll conclude with this. This is from Swami Vivekananda. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest the divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. Do this either by work or worship or psychic control or philosophy, but one or more or all of the above, and be free. This is the whole of religion. Doctrines or dogmas, or rituals or books, or temples or forms are but secondary details. So I rest my case with namaste.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for those readings. Jyoti, you do have the final word. What's especially?
Yeah, I don't know if I can top all those great that great conclusion from Johnny, but just a last word. So similar to what Johnny said. Again, I also come from a Shaivite background and family, but we've been very polytheistic in our faith religion. So I would consider almost what we call the Smartha, where every god has their own individual strengths and teachings for us that I take from and that I use in my day-to-day life. Personally, where I am, as we think about the Hindu religion and what's written in the Bhagavad Gita, is really there's 3 paths to God. One is karma yoga, which is doing your duty and rituals and doing what the right path is. The bhakti yoga, the path of devotion, which is really following your faith traditions, following a path of devotion, whether it's singing bhajans or singing rituals or other forms of bhakti to express your devotion. And then lastly, the philosophies of the jnana yoga, gaining that inner self, inner knowledge and spiritualization in order to reach God. Neither of these paths are right or wrong. You can go in any of these paths, but I think it's important to keep in mind the ultimate goal is whatever works for you, go that path. And I'm still finding my best path to self-realization and to really find that divine meaning in my life.
Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Yes, thank you. So this is what's coming up for me. We need to do Hinduism Part 2 next month, because you guys already have some great slides, and I looked at them, and they have some really juicy stuff. So I'll talk to you all about that some more. But and we knew, right, because Hinduism is the most diverse. It's got the richest history. The distinguishing between what's religious, what's cultural, what's national are also juicy. That it's going to take a lot more time for us to unpack. And we didn't even get to some of my favorite things. So you all that are out there watching, look for Hinduism Part 2, where we'll go back into some more of this. I am so deeply grateful for the wisdom and the knowledge that's been shared here today. Your time and effort to help bring your tradition is really beautiful. And that, I think that's what will build the kind of Louisville that we want, that we can all love and appreciate the beauty of each other's diversity. And so you all have represented that not only with your stories, but with your knowledge. So a deep bow. Namaste, my God in me and soul in me bows to the God and soul in you. And I'm deeply thankful.
Namaste.
Namaste.
those that have been watching on Zoom or Facebook, we've had a great crowd on Facebook, and a lot of appreciation for y'all's wisdom and appreciation for that. So come back next month. We'll send out some information on Hinduism Part 2, and we'll jump back in and get to some of the other good stuff. So those that are presented, Jeremiah, thank you for being here. Deep bow to you all, and everybody have a fabulous day, and we'll reconnect next month. Thank you all. Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.